Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for joining us. Well, we're going to have a review of the first weeks of the Shapiro administration, but first, the Pennsylvania House returns on Tuesday. What will happen next is unclear. Back after these words.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
All right, we have some important topics to chat about today. Joining me to do that is Marc Levy. He's a reporter with Associated Press, and Angela Couloumbis. She's a reporter with Spotlight Pennsylvania. All right, well, let's start with this. I'll start with you, Angela. The Pennsylvania House returns. It is absolutely unclear. 102 to 101. It's almost like if somebody's not there for a variety of reasons, what happens, and can the legislature even get itself organized and approve the rules to begin to meet?
Right. So right now we have a complete paralysis in the State House. They have been, because of that really narrow majority, they've been unable to agree on a set of operating rules. As a result, they can't name committee chairs. They can't start considering legislation. And we are up against the clock because in a few weeks, Governor Shapiro is going to be announcing his first budget. Right. And there is going to be very much the expectation that they're going to be ready to work.
Yeah. Well, Marc Rossi is the Speaker of the House of Representatives. He's a Democrat from Berks County, basically the city of Reading. He's the Speaker. He got every single Democratic vote and something like 16 Republican votes in the leadership. The Republicans argue that he agreed to change his party registration, which he has not done. So does he remain as Speaker, but he's the 102nd vote?
Right. So he had agreed, supposedly, according to Republicans, to become an independent. He is remaining a Democrat, and the relationship between him and Republican leadership has deteriorated dramatically. Also, the thing is that, Democrats really do have a different person that they'd want to elevate the Speaker, and that's Joanna McClinton of Philadelphia, who is their floor leader. Yeah. And so for Marc Rossi, he kind of came about in an unforeseen and unexpected process when neither side could really have the votes to elevate a Speaker. And how long he stays is the question, and he lacks support from either side, really, to be the long-term Speaker.
And you never know what can happen. What happens if some member just can't make it for health reasons or whatever reason? You can't have a one-person majority and function, can you?
Well, we've been here before.
Yeah,
a little more than a decade ago, that happened. There was I believe it was a one-seat majority for Democrats. In the House, and they functioned. It was not pretty, and there were a lot of arguments, and it was difficult to move legislation, but they got it done. This time around feels a little different, only because it feels like there's a lot more bad feeling between both Democrats and Republicans and the Speaker, but we'll see. We'll see how it plays out.
That's a good way to put it. We will see. All right, I'm going to turn to you, Marc. All right, we have both of our United States senators with health problems. One it looks like more serious than the other one. Why don't you talk about John Fetterman first, and then we'll get to Bob Casey, Senator Casey, and Senator Fetterman.
So John Fetterman was in the hospital for 2 days. He felt lightheaded during an all-day retreat with Democratic senators in Washington, D.C., and checked himself in. As most people know, he had a stroke last May in the middle of the campaign. He was ultimately successful, but he had to finish the campaign while recovering from the stroke. It kept him off the campaign trail for much of the summer, and he is still suffering the effects of it. Not only does he have a defibrillator and a pacemaker in his heart as a result of the stroke, but he is suffering what we call auditory processing disorder. It's a common after effect of a stroke where your brain simply doesn't process the words you're hearing into meaning.
And they have made special accommodations with certain types of machinery, I'll put it that way, to help him follow what's going on.
That's right. So he carries with him an iPad during hearings. There's screens that I guess, transform words into, or spoken words into words that printed so that he can see it in real time, sort of what went on during the debate he had in October with his Republican opponent. But there is a very much a watchfulness for his long-term health.
And Senator Casey had prostate surgery, and it was a success. And if I understand it correctly, he doesn't need to have any additional treatment.
That's what his office said, that his doctor said that he doesn't need any follow-up treatment, that he'll be fine. And the larger perspective here is that Bob Casey's expected to run again for a fourth term.
Sure.
And it's going to be a very tough cycle for Democrats nationally, and they very much would need a guy like him to run to keep the seat.
All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, let's talk about votes and election systems investigations. We'll see where all of that, where does all that go after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
All right, Mark. Well, the Republicans have launched an investigation into voting and the election system. They generally don't like mail-in balloting, which historically in this state has favored the Democrats. More Democrats use it than Republicans. Where does this investigation stand?
So what we have is a court case in which a state judge said she was not going to order the state to turn over a trove of election information, information about voters, about voter registration systems, about election systems, to a Republican-controlled committee in the state Senate that issued a subpoena for it. The judge said, you have your own rules to enforce this subpoena. The subpoena was created under your own rules, and it doesn't involve a judge getting involved in issuing a court order to provide it. Democrats have opposed the subpoena in court, saying that a lot of this information is protected by privacy laws, some of the information about voters, some of the information about election systems. So we'll see if Republicans in the Senate want to keep pursuing it through the subpoena process or appeal it to the state Supreme Court.
Yeah. And that's the big question is, where does it all go? I mean, maybe to the Supreme Court, but the fact of the matter is it looks like the Democrats are going to control the House, as we've just been talking about, and they're not likely to agree to any investigation, correct?
Well, right. This is right now it's in the state Senate, which is Republican-controlled, so that committee is still controlled by Republicans and could still decide to pursue it.
Right. Yeah,
however,
true.
they've been pretty silent for the last year on this issue, and there hasn't been much action, so I sort of see it fading very quietly. And not being pursued.
Yeah, we'll have to see. All right, I'm going to stay with you, and let's look. The education budget in the state of Pennsylvania is huge. Right. It is huge. And there was a recent court decision which said the way education is funded in our state is illegal. I'll put it that way. Right. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Unconstitutional,
Unconstitutional.
Yes. Yeah.
So where does this all stand?
Well, it's a landmark court decision. It's going to have many things are going to have to change because of it, unless it is at some point Republicans who have opposed this effort have to make the decision as to whether they're going to appeal it to the state Supreme Court.
Right.
I think that's a tricky proposition for them based off of the fact that the Supreme Court is majority Democrat right now and is likely to uphold the Commonwealth Court ruling. Effectively, the judge said in Commonwealth Court is that the state is required to provide a thorough and efficient education to every student in Pennsylvania. That is currently not happening. There is not equitable education, and poor and disadvantaged districts tend to suffer the most.
Yeah, obviously because of the significance of the local property tax in terms of raising money.
Right. Pennsylvania is one of those states that relies very heavily on local property taxes, and wealthier districts can make up for that by raising taxes, not so much in the poorer districts.
And that's going to be very difficult to resolve.
It's going to be very difficult and potentially very, very expensive. The judge said that it does not necessarily require just a financial resolution. There can be other ways to fix it, but there seems to be very little disagreement on the fact that it's going to cost quite a bit of money.
More money, and at least there's a surplus, at least for the moment, in the state budget. We'll have to see how much and how that all works out. Thanks for the important update. All right, coming up, a review of the first weeks of the administration of Governor Shapiro.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Cross-State Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, go to ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
All right, joining me to talk about the early days of the Shapiro administration is Luke Bernstein. He's the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry. Luke, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Terry.
Well, I want to also get into workforce development if we have time, tax reform. But there seems to be universal consent, universal agreement that the Shapiro administration is basically handling matters in the right way and covering items, subjects, and policies that are reasonably popular and important.
Yeah, I think he's off to a very good start, and I think he's picked some issues that are not only important to Pennsylvanians, but have some real bipartisan agreement to them.
Right.
Issues like permitting reform. This is something that, whether you're on the left or on the right, it's something that is really important to Pennsylvania and has broad-based bipartisan agreement to, because I think we all realize if we can expedite the permitting reform process, we can get projects done faster, we can put people to work much quicker, we can tap into federal resources. So that was a key piece that he led with via executive order. It was a good first step.
Right.
I think we can take that step and try and codify that through the state legislature. That was important. Another key thing that he did was he talked about reducing the time for the state licensure boards to get licenses out to people that need them. So in Pennsylvania, we've been in a state crisis for nurses and in getting more nurses into the healthcare industry. And so traditionally, the state nursing board, it's been taking months and months. And you hear the different horror stories that's taking so long to get a your state nursing license.
Right.
So what he's talking about is cutting that time frame down. We're not doing anything in terms of skirting the requirements, but reducing the time frame. Those are important steps that really no one should be opposed to. It's good for all sides. It's good for business. It's good for labor. It's good for those and all of us that need patient care. And so really good first steps in those regards.
Yeah. He also seems to be moving about the state, meeting with different groups of people, trying to encourage interaction with his administration. In other words, tell me what you think, asking people and folks like you for, advice on what to do and how to do it.
Yeah, I think that started very well through the transition. I think they did a nice job during the transition. I served on the transition team. There was business, there was labor, there were all different viewpoints. And I think we were able to work and give the incoming secretary some actionable items to take a look at initially and try and tackle. The 2 executive orders were 2 that within my subcommittee we worked on and approached. And so I think he has a history of being able to work with both sides and bring folks together. I think that's going to be a necessary skill today's given the bipartisan environment, with a strong Republican majority in the Senate, with the House a little bit more questionable, and with the Democratic governor.
Right.
So we have a bipartisan split governing bodies in Harrisburg.
And we're going to see early in March, he's going to deliver the budget message. That's the first big sort of general policy matters will be in that budget, and we'll see how all that goes.
That's right. So Stephen Covey said, "Show me your budget, and I'll show you your priorities."
Yeah, that's a great point.
We'll see that play out here next month. But I think all the things that we've heard, he's talking about reducing business taxes, making Pennsylvania more competitive,
right,
driving innovation. Those are things which should be welcome to a state that we have languished in some of the business movement, in our regulatory environment, in our tax environment. So these are all things that I believe can make Pennsylvania more competitive. So it's a positive on the business front.
All right, let's run to a break. When we come back, I want to talk about workforce development, how important jobs are, where are they needed, and we'll get to that in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine.
All right, Luke Bernstein, let's talk about workforce development. I'll tell you, you can't go anywhere, and I keep pointing this out, where help wanted, help wanted, help wanted signs are out everywhere, and yet, the unemployment figures are very low. And where is the workforce?
Yeah, a couple things with that. When COVID, Pennsylvania, there were 250,000 people that left the workforce during COVID. Only 125,000 have come back. And of that, the largest majority that has not returned to the workforce have been ages 18 to 35. So we need to try and recruit those who left the workforce to come back and re-enter the workforce. That's causing a strain in many places to get people back into the workforce. So when we see the unemployment rate in Pennsylvania at 3.9%,
right,
but it's the participation rate. So we need more people re-entering the workforce.
That's an important point.
And coming back in, because there are critical positions. You are right. I can't go anywhere in the state without talking to a business owner, a CEO, someone in HR that's saying, we are looking for talent. We want people to come back. We're trying to find new people, trying to look for new ways.
And trying to get work done. If you have some need, let's say, around in your residence or in your work, I mean, oh, yeah, we'll see you in 8 weeks. We'll see you in 2 months, whatever it is, 3 months, 4 months. And that's exactly to the point you're making.
Absolutely correct. And it's not specific to any industry. It's really across the board. So the importance of workforce development and really working with the high school and colleges. I don't think we can separate education anymore with workforce development. They really go hand in hand. And so focusing on those two areas is a one-pronged approach. We need a statewide strategy for economic development that includes workforce development and education. And those are the things that can make us more competitive. And there are a number of programs right now that are taking place that I think are effective. We need to duplicate those and really ramp those up.
Yeah. All right, let's turn to another subject, tax reform.
Yep.
What's your sense about that?
In Pennsylvania, we had the second highest corporate net income tax in the country, only to New Jersey. We shouldn't trail New Jersey in anything. Maybe the Jersey Shore. They have a pretty good Jersey Shore. Outside that, we shouldn't trail New Jersey in any economic category. We were just ahead of them. They were 11.99. Pennsylvania was 9.99. And we've got that reduced, but in a bipartisan manner. Last legislative session, Democratic governor, Republican-led legislature, the leadership came together. We reduced that to 8.99 effective January 1st, 23, goes all the way down to 4.99 by 2031. The incoming governor, Josh Shapiro, has said he wants to expedite that phase down and get that done faster. And just last week, Senator Ament and Senator Rothman, Republican senators, said that they wanted to expedite that as well, offering a bill to lower to 7.99 immediately and then going down. So there's bipartisan agreement to expedite this, and we think that will jumpstart our economy and will get companies not only reinvesting in Pennsylvania that are here, but looking to Pennsylvania as a place that they can come and do business.
Geographically, Pennsylvania is a very complicated state, and there are parts of the state where workforce development is more badly needed than in others, in rural, what I call rural and small towns.
Yeah, absolutely. Pennsylvania is diverse, and I think that's what makes us unique. It also makes us special, and there are different challenges throughout the state. So whether you're in Philadelphia or Pottsville or Pittsburgh or Erie, there are different complexities, but I think a lot of the challenges remain the same throughout the state. In any of the places I just mentioned, which I've been to recently, have all said we need more workforce, we need more talent. And so for us, that's an opportunity to get people entering the workforce and staying here. We have some of the greatest educational institutions in the world right here in Pennsylvania.
Absolutely.
But we're seeing people come, graduate, and then go
leave
elsewhere.
the state.
So we need to stay. Penn State's new president is talking about ending that boomerang effect. I'm hearing other colleges and universities talk about ending that boomerang effect. Dickinson, F&M, we shouldn't have this great talent go to other states. So we're encouraged by those that are looking to stay in Pennsylvania and working to that end.
Is there any business or industry that you would signal out for the need, more of the need that you're talking about than others? Is it more retail? Is it, go ahead,
Healthcare.
Manufacturing?
Healthcare is a big one. Manufacturing, the trades, all big. So skilled labor with carpentry, electricians. You go right down to drywall, but also healthcare. You know, we talked earlier about nursing. There are things that we can do to expedite that nursing process without taking out any of the requirements. So those are industries, but healthcare is an industry. It could be an X-ray tech. These are good careers for individuals.
So you don't have to wait 6, 8, even 10 weeks to get some service delivered.
Exactly right. We can get people going faster. The community colleges, can they expand their nursing output? Places like Thaddeus Stevens, can they expand? But in order for them to expand, we need the students going into them. So we need to do a better job as a state of encouraging high school students to seek those careers because they're great careers. You can start as a welder at $75,000, $80,000 a year without a college degree. That's a great long-term career. So there are opportunities. I think we need to do a better job effectively communicating what those are and how they can be great opportunities for our next generation.
Yeah, that's important. I want to thank you for coming in, and you're going to come back and keep us updated and see where all of this goes. But the economic development aspect of our economy is extremely important. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And as always, you stay well.